In the current environment, the ability of employers to offer sufficient work has been curtailed, and there is a heightened risk that an increase in minimum wages would further reduce employment and working hours. The Commission has therefore decided to leave Australia's federal minimum wage unchanged at $543.78 per week. The Australian pay and classification scales will also remain unchanged at their present levels throughout 2009. Our concern is that a blanket increase in minimum wages, while affordable to some businesses, may not be sustainable for all businesses.
The Australian Council of Trade Unions believe that the pay freeze on low-paid workers who are reliant on the minimum award is unfair and discriminatory. In real terms, more than 1.3 million Australians will be worse off. This means that the average award worker will lose about $16 a week until the next wage decision is due in July next year. However, it is not only workers who will be affected. According to ACTU Secretary Jeff Lawrence, less money in workers' pockets will mean shops and businesses will suffer a decline in sales, and this could harm the economy.
This is an appalling decision, and Australians right across the country will see it for what it is. Equally, businesses who need the purchasing power of working Australians to be maintained will feel the pinch as the main streets of our communities in suburbs find it very, very difficult to themselves survive. We saw the head of the Fair Pay Commission, Professor Harper, out in the public arena months ago, indicating that he was going to consider taking into account discriminatory aspects like tax cuts, like the stimulus measures and the like. That is discriminatory, it entrenches inequality. No other worker in Australia has been made to bear the brunt of the economic crisis in this way. And of course, it's not just bad for those working families, as I've said, it's bad for the economy. Wage deflation, purchasing power, the loss of purchasing power is not good for business, and it's not good for confidence.
That is an argument which the ACTU put to us. They weren't the only ones to put that argument to us. We actually did some modelling on that because it's an important proposition to think through carefully, whether raising minimum wages would actually help stimulate demand. But to cut a long story short, the difficulty there is that if people haven't got work, then any wage increase which is offered to them is of no use for stimulating the economy. So
Australian employers are pleased with the decision of the Fair Pay Commission, claiming that if wages were to increase, the profitability of small businesses would be affected, and moreover, jobs would be shed.
I think when you look back past recent history in terms of these national wage processes, they're always very difficult to predict. We are, though, very pleased with the outcome, the decision that's been made today by the Fair Pay Commission. We're not denying people the opportunity to gain wage increases. We're saying, though, that certainly there should be moderation underpinning any particular outcomes, but we're saying that where wage outcomes are going to flow, they should be determined in individual workplaces based on their particular needs and the needs of their employees. Look, we do know from the businesses that we represent that many of them have already introduced cuts in working hours, they've introduced their own pay freezes, they're doing all sorts of things to maintain jobs within their organisations right now. There is no way that an additional cost impact of the sort that the ACTU was seeking would have done anything to assist that situation.
This is an independent decision. The power of unions will be seen in our capacity to bargain collectively, to work with employers to make sure fair wages and conditions are defended. Every year, unions take their advocacy seriously in regard to the minimum wage decision. It's a floor of dignity for workers right across Australia, for low-paid workers. It's the very basis on which they can expect to have a living wage that allows them to make ends meet. When we sit at the bargaining table, that's when unions are able to bargain with their members and unions for a fair set of wages.
The federal government's submission to the Fair Pay Commission sought an increase in minimum wages. Although respecting the Commission as an independent body, the government is disappointed with its final decision.
We believe that there should be a safety net, and the way the system works is that the safety net is the benchmark for bargaining. So yes, this does affect where that benchmark for bargaining is. We suggested that the Fair Pay Commission should consider a pay rise for these workers, and we were obviously concerned that people should at least maintain their real wages. As I've commented, that this decision inevitably means that there will be a real wage reduction for low-income Australians. They tend to be Australians in occupations like retail and hospitality. Often they are unskilled workers or semi-skilled workers, many women who work part-time, and obviously for them to see no increase in their wages is tough.
There is greater potential for this decision to adversely affect employment and unemployment. Nevertheless, the Commission remains concerned about the need to provide a safety net for the low-paid. Lower inflation, the Australian government's changes to the tax and transfer system, and the stimulus packages have together delivered real increases in disposable income for the most low-paid households.
The ACTU's response to the concept that the government's economic stimulus package acts as a safety net for low-paid Australians is that the pay freeze will actually counter-effect the $900 stimulus payment for more than 13% of the workforce and will undermine consumer demand. It will not be until the 1st of July 2010 that the incoming minimum wages panel of the Rudd government's Fair Work Australia will have the power to offer an increase in the minimum award wage.
The independence of Fair Work Australia will mean that they will look at the evidence, they will look to the needs of the low paid as they're charged to do. We expect an independent statutory body, and thankfully we'll get that back with Fair Work Australia to do the right thing by working people, by low paid working Australians, and we're going to now have to wait, sadly, to the first half of next year to see that justice delivered.